Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for attending our special edition here. For those of you who have joined the Getting Started in the past, we have went through soup to nuts in terms of signing up for an evaluation, enrolling devices, and walking through MaaS360. Going to do things a little bit different today. And if you do have questions, just drop them in the chat window, and we'll address those at the end of the presentation here. But as John said, we're going to go through a couple slides, and then we'll go through a demonstration specific to the Amazon Kindle. So our agenda for today is to kind of go through an introduction of MaaS360 and then hop right into the Amazon Kindle Fire overview. We will show some of the specifications. We'll talk about our feature matrix in terms of what is supported and also highlight a few feature notes. I'll then cover a couple best practices, and then we'll pop right into MaaS360 so you can see how you can start benefiting and managing this new popular device that Amazon put out that is selling quite quickly. So MaaS360 by Fiberlink, as most of you are aware, provides the leading cloud-based mobile device management solution for enterprises who are trying to manage the influx of various devices out there trying to access your corporate resources. So we have expanded our reach to include support for the recently launched Kindle Fire from Amazon. And what we'll talk about today is some of the items that we can support on the Fire, which is agent-based enrollment, all done over the air, policy management, so setting passwords, configuring email, as well as device management, so being able to do things like lock the device remotely or reset a password for the user, or even doing a selective wipe to remove your corporate email. In terms of the overall specifications, the Kindle Fire is well-equipped in terms of it being a mobile device, and it comes with full access to the Amazon content, so you get access to their books, their apps, and their videos. You also get access to the web, and the price point is quite desirable at $199. The specs and the price point are sure to make this Android device a hit in the consumer market, which we've already seen in terms of some of the numbers that Amazon have put out there, especially around the holidays. And I'm sure some of you have seen an influx of those coming across. And it's great for holiday shoppers. Obviously, it was great for consumers, but for the enterprise, the mobile device does provide the same concerns as any other mobile device. How do you control sensitive corporate data, such as email, anywhere you can find an internet connection? How do you make sure you can wipe that device or remove, your corporate information in terms of a bring your own device model? So here you'll see some of the specifications. I'm not going to go through every single one. For those of you who attended the Kindle versus iPad, they did cover off a lot of those in details, and you can certainly watch that on our Master Center as well. So getting into the important parts, I know the slide is a little heavy here in terms of its viewability, but here what you can see is the MDM feature that is supported on the Android versus the Kindle, and then any comments that we've added. So we will have support for ActiveSync, and that's done via ActiveSync connections directly and or use of Touchdown. You can still do your enrollment, so that's on par with a regular Android device, and we'll still have reporting support, and that will give you information around your inventory, your security, and your network information. One item that I would like to call out here is location will not be available on the Kindle Fire, so it won't be available in MaaS360. In terms of policy management, some of the things I mentioned earlier, passcode, device restrictions, setting up wireless, setting up email, only allowing certain apps to be installed, enforcing the MaaS360 application to remain on the Kindle is going to have some limited support, so there's two notes on the right-hand side there. We do have intelligence built into the agent to recognize the available policy configurations for Kindle applicability versus other Android devices, and I'll call those out on the next couple slides here. And then we will have partial native application compliance support. In terms of the actions, the only action that will not be available is the locate device, because that is not supported by the Kindle Fire. Every other action that we offer, such as a lock and selective wipe, reset passwords, that type of thing, will be supported on the device. In terms of app and document management, again, the one piece of limited support there is the Kindle Fire doesn't support the Android marketplace. So you do have to do a little bit of homework in terms of some best practices that will cover if there are applications that you want to distribute. You'll have to make sure those are available in the Kindle Fire store. The rules engine will be fully supported in terms of applicable policies on the Kindle device itself. In terms of email configuration, we will be able to secure the email and push and remove email profiles. We do use Touchdown for that, and we are partnered with NitroDesk to be able to help our customers acquire that application as well as to do training or help customers get up and running on it. And you'll see some of the highlights on that later, but this will allow integration with your email and ability for us to be able to selectively wipe your email, your calendar, your contact data, and other configured profiles on the device. We also do have our mobile expense management functionality available on the Android. Since Kindle is Wi-Fi only, that won't be applicable at this time. So just some notes about the feature matrix that we just went over. We do require the Kindle Fire system version 6.2 or higher, and you'll see some of the Android device configurations that are not supported by the Kindle Fire, and the list is there. We're hoping we can get into some of those additional things a little bit later. And then we also called out some of the limitations on the MaaS360 native app compliance support. So you can block on the device, the browser, native email, gallery, and Amazon Market will be coming this quarter. One other item I did want to call out about the wipe feature on the Kindle Fire is if the battery is low and the administrator sends a wipe to the device from the MaaS360 portal, the device will get that wipe and it will try to wipe, but due to the low battery signal, it will display a message that indicates low in battery, cannot wipe the device, and the device will power off. You'll see the device restart a couple times, and then once the device gets charged, it does get wiped. We do have an email into Amazon on this one as well to see if there's anything we can do to help improve that. Now, in terms of best practices, there's really 4 best practices that we suggest, and the first one is really gaining visibility into your Kindle Fire devices that are in your environment. And this can be done with our MaaS360 Cloud Extender, which many of you are probably familiar with, that integrates with your Exchange, Traveler, and BlackBerry environments. But what this allows you to do is pull any device that may already be synchronized with your mail environment over to MaaS360 so you can identify what type of devices are in the network. So here, what you're seeing is we've created a watch list item to track how many devices are Amazon Kindle Fires. And we've also highlighted what you would select in the Smart Search to be able to search on that. So what you're looking at there is the model contains the Kindle Fire and the manufacturer contains Amazon. And then you can save that device group via the Smart Search so you can push your specific policies down to that device, as well as any compliance rules that you may have that you want to apply. In terms of policy management, we do suggest you create a separate policy for the Kindle Fire devices. And the reason for this is Amazon does not use Google C2DM network, which is what we leverage and other vendors leverage for real-time notification on the devices. So we do suggest you create a policy not only to control some of the heartbeat intervals to make sure that you are reaching these devices in a timely manner, but also to make sure that you're using the policies that are only applicable to the Amazon Fire itself. We do make it quite simple to create individual policies and rule sets and then apply those to your device groups, which you could set, as our previous screen said, based on the Kindle Fire by Amazon. In terms of secure email, like I mentioned, MaaS360 does support the configuration and removal of Touchdown 100% of the time. And since many of these users will be requesting email support, we do recommend you use Touchdown. And Touchdown gives you the ability to send that email configuration profile down and also to manage various policies such as encrypting your email and encrypting the attachments. One important thing to note is since the Fire is based on 2.3 Android, there is no hardware encryption on the device. The last best practice I wanted to talk about was some of our application management, and I alluded to some of this earlier. you do want to ensure that the relevant app recommendations are available through the Amazon App Store. And you'll also want to recommend these apps to the Amazon Kindle device based on the device groups or smart search that you created. And I'll show you how to kind of set some of those things up as we go through the demonstration here. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and hop into the demo here, so just give me a moment to share out my browsers. So when you get an Amazon Kindle Fire, you can order that obviously directly from Amazon, or you can purchase it at other locations. It does kind of come pre-configured with some of your information on. So I did just want to quickly highlight for you in the Amazon market here. I'm logged in as myself at the moment, and I'm taking a look at all of my apps and my devices. So here on my particular Kindle Fire, I have some comics, I have ESPN, I have Touchdown installed, I have MaaS360 MDM for Android installed, and a handful of other things here. So you can see in Amazon's area that I'm managing my Kindle, I'm looking at my apps and devices, and everything looks good there. So I did just want to highlight that, since you can manage the device here just in terms of some of your inventory, and to let you know that this is a real live device. Since the device isn't rooted, I'm not going to be able to go through our normal enrollment process. But what you can see here is we went into manage enrollment requests, and just like any other device, I had sent myself an enrollment request, and we're using our Active Directory integration, so I just have that single URL. And you can see here just a little bit ago, about 20 minutes before the webinar started, I went ahead and got my Fire enrolled. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my Kindle Fire here, and you can see, much like the rest of MaaS360 with our devices, we have the summary screen that you're looking at first in terms of the hardware inventory information, the network information, and then your security and compliance detail. And there's a couple important things I want to point out here. So you can see that it's Amazon, it's running Gingerbread 234. I can get an idea of my free space. I can still tag this as a corporate versus personally owned device, and I can also see my email was configured here. Now, under the security and compliance section, you can see that I have a specific Fire policy assigned to my device, and that my device is in compliance. One of the important things I did want to call out using our cloud extender with Exchange is we can use the auto quarantine functionality to block any device, including the Fires, from coming in directly to your mail. You see that my device is presently quarantined because I haven't moved it out of the quarantine state when I re-enrolled it. And that is because I set up my Touchdown profile. So if I scroll into underneath my summary and go into my Exchange ActiveSync profile, here I can see that my mailbox is activated. I can see when I was last synchronized to the Exchange server, that I'm using the Touchdown agent, my ActiveSync identity, as well as my approval state and my ActiveSync policy, which is currently set to the default ActiveSync policy. So a very easy way to help, during the enrollment process, setting up Touchdown, setting up Exchange ActiveSync, and giving the IT administrator a lot of control over what's getting down to these devices. And if I wanted to approve that device, I could simply go into my actions and go to my ActiveSync actions and hit approve device. I'm going to say that's corporate owned. I'm going to put in my name. I'm going to hit yes, and then that's going to process that request back to the cloud extender to allow me to start receiving email. And you'll see we've also logged that as part of our action history. So going back to some of the other pieces, under the hardware inventory, you can see here the specifics about the Kindle Fire, which would match up to some of those specs in the PowerPoint. We can also still set custom attributes here in terms of ownership or country or important devices, and you can, of course, create your own custom attributes to track specific items as well. In terms of the operating system, here are the specifics about the OS and the kernel, as well as the API and build number, so all the Amazon/Android information. Here I can look and see my cellular network information is obviously disabled because there's not really 3G capability on these devices. But if I look down at my wireless network information, I can see that I am currently attached to our FL Visitor network here, and that I do have a good last connection date of about 20 minutes ago or so. Now, the security and compliance section is one of the more important ones, I would say. So here, not only can you tell if the device is rooted, but you could also start looking into some of the other security applications that are on the device. So here, I can tell that my hardware encryption is not supported on this device. I have a rule set configured. I can see my policy. Here I can see what was configured by policy. So when I enrolled this device, we pushed the ActiveSync information down, as well as the wireless configuration, and also our application catalog. Here I can see that nothing has failed to install, which is a good thing. And you can also get detail about the password settings. So this particular policy does have a password associated with it of 4 characters, which I set a little bit earlier. And here I can tell that I'm compliant with that password policy. And you can also gather some additional information from below. If I continue to look through some of this, I'll skip over ActiveSync since we looked at that one already. I can get a list of all of my software installed. So here it's fairly light in terms of what's on the device, but we have MaaS360, I have a Solitaire app, and then I have the Touchdown application. A lot of this is just very general and consistent with what you'll see on your Android devices. In terms of running services, we can take a look here and see how much memory is being used, by which application, and how long things have been running. If I wanted to look at various apps that have been distributed to my device, I could do that here. There's not an app distributed down to this particular device at this point, but if there was, you would see the app name, the status, and when it was distributed. And I can show you a little bit better on the documents access. So here I did push down one of our data sheets to the device and opened it on that device. And here I can see that it was the name of that document and what time I downloaded it. In terms of the MaaS360 services, this gives you an indication of the version. This was built specifically for the Kindle Fires, so you will see the application version here of 2.60.005. You can tell what is the current version, when it was installed, and when we were registered on C2DM, which won't apply here since Amazon doesn't integrate with that. And then also our MaaS360 device ID, which is that unique identifier. In terms of the action history, we can determine when certain things happen, so this does give you a fairly good understanding if somebody reset the password or somebody lost the device, or if you made a policy change, those sorts of things. So more audit history for compliance reasons. I won't go too far into all of the actions here, but I did just want to call out, you know, the same things apply here as do on any other Android device or iOS device that we manage with our product. You can issue a refresh of that device. You can send the device a message. So if I wanted to push a notification down, I could simply click the send message button here. I could type in, you know, some information for the end user. And if I click yes on this side, I'll enter my password. And then what will happen is you'll get a notification here, and within a few moments, that message will come down into my notification bar. Other actions that you can do on the device is lock it, reset the password. You can issue that selective wipe, as I was mentioning, which allows us to remove the email, wireless, and VPN profile. And I don't know if you heard that little noise pop up, but in my notification bar, I did get my little test message here. With the selective wipe, that's generally used as a compliance action. So an example may be if your device is rooted, you may not want to allow the user to synchronize their email. So we would detect that, and we would remove those profiles until they were back into compliance. And at that point, we would reset up Touchdown, we would re-push the wireless profiles down as well. One unique thing about that is it does allow users to bring their own devices into your network, ask for access to email, and then when they're ready to leave, allows you to securely remove your information and their email configuration, but still let them go away with pictures of their vacations or whatnot. You can send a full wipe to the device, just with the note I mentioned earlier in terms of the low battery, something to keep in mind there. You can change the Android policy. You can distribute an application. You could remove control. When you remove control, that does a selective wipe as well as makes the device unmanaged. So that is your BYOD scenario where the user brings the device in and wants to walk away from the company scot-free. And then you'll also see with our cloud extender, we have the ActiveSync actions here, which would allow you to do, approve or block, change your ActiveSync policy, or remove that device from the Exchange server. So we looked at the individual device. I did just want to go back and show you our watch list. So we made a custom item here that would allow you to track your Kindle Fires. So if I clicked on this particular watch list item here, this should just bring me into my device, because that's the only one that we have configured at the moment. But one of the things I wanted to show you is in terms of our device group information, what I did here was created a device group based on my V Hetrick devices. And if I click into Val's devices here, you'll see my Kindle Fire and my iPhone are both part of this group here. And if I go back to the device group itself, on the right-hand side, you'll see an Actions drop-down. And this is where you'll be able to specify certain policies or rules that should be applied to this particular device. So if I wanted to create a device group based on our smart search of Amazon Kindle Fires, and then assign a particular policy to it, when those devices enroll, they would automatically receive the policy that you have assigned here, as well as the rule set that you have assigned. So in terms of best practices, create a separate policy, create a separate compliance rule. You're going to create a group that's specific to the Kindle Fire, and then you can apply those actions at a group level, which will give your IT administrator a little bit of a break in terms of managing all the devices. Now, we've talked a little bit about the device policies, and I can show you here that the policy we're using is our Kindle Fire test policy. And within this policy, I have a password configured, a 4-character numeric, which made me set when I logged into the device itself. I'm just going to click Edit here to show you some of the additional things. In security settings, the enforced device encryption won't apply since it's on a version of lower Android. And you can control the passwords in terms of if you want to allow the user to see those while they're typing or not. In terms of the device restrictions, here you can see some of the details in terms of what you can configure and what you can't configure. We talked a bit about application compliance, and this is where you can add these IDs from the Amazon market to be able to either allow or restrict or require an application. As mentioned with the native app compliance, there are a handful of those that are supported, and that would be your browser, your email, the gallery, and like I mentioned, we'll be adding the Amazon market in Q1 here. On our wireless signal, you'll see I've configured a visitor signal here. VPN isn't going to apply right now since right now Android only supports VPN on the Motorola devices that have the EDM APIs. Of course, Ice Cream Sandwich is opening up the ability for manufacturers to tap into VPN, so we're waiting on what Cisco and Juniper and the VPN vendors are going to do from that perspective. In terms of ActiveSync, I mentioned here's where you can configure the information to push down via touchdown. So when you enroll the device, after MaaS360 comes down and the policy gets applied and the device is in compliance, the user would be prompted to install touchdown. I'm just using the demo version here, but you can set a license key if you need to. And then you'll see some of the benefits of touchdown in terms of securing the email on the device since there is no device encryption. You can configure a second password to get into your touchdown application. So this isn't the device password, this is actually an application level password. Two of the more popular items here are encrypting emails and encrypting attachments. But you can see some of the other settings that would be available to you in terms of using some of the additional detail. So here we went as far just to customize the email signature to make sure folks know we're sending email from the Kindle Fire in case there's any mistypings. Now, the device management is where we're making some recommendations around our application timers, but there's 3 things I want to address in here. And the first is, if you do try to disable MaaS360 as an administrator on that device, we can prompt the user with a message that you can customize there, and you can take an action on that device. So you could issue a selective wipe, which would remove the email along with the administrator. You could do nothing. You could set an administrative lock, which only you would be able to allow get back on the device with. Or if you wanted to be really nasty, you could wipe the device. In terms of the enforcement actions, as many of you are probably familiar with Android, we're not able to force the user to do anything, so we make suggestions based on policy. And if the user doesn't comply to that suggestion after a predetermined interval, you can take an action as well, because that will take them out of compliance. So if the user determines they don't want to set a password on their device, not only are they not going to be able to get their email since that's required, but they'll also be deemed out of compliance and you can take an action on them. Now, in terms of the application timers, what we're recommending is 60 minutes. Our normal intervals are 4 hours. You can certainly take it down a little bit, more specific. So here we have it set to 5 minutes just for purposes of demo and quickness to show you things. But usually 60 minutes is adequate. That will make sure that you can still reach the devices and are collecting information about the devices on a good interval. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and click cancel here. And I did just want to highlight a couple other things in terms of what you can do with MaaS360. So we talked a little bit about application management. And here, if you wanted to, from our main screens, you can go in and add market apps from the market catalog. Again, you will just need to determine, if those are applicable for the Fires, depending on what type of information you're distributing. Or you can also upload your enterprise apps if you have built anything from a corporate side to distribute down to these devices. We talked somewhat about document distribution, and that also lives within the MaaS360 app. So here you can see the data sheet that I downloaded earlier. I can see that there was one active distribution and one download. And if I click on that, you're going to see this was me a little while ago, that I installed it, and I opened it, and I looked at it. We've talked a little bit about the specific policies for the Kindle, and we also have rule sets that you can create on this side, so you can apply those to your Kindle Fires as well. So if we take a look at this particular one, I could back that off just to say apply this to Android, since I know it's only going to go to the Kindles. And I can start looking at my enforcement rules. So here, if I wanted to make sure that the end user did not remove our software, I could set up a compliance rule to alert the administrator, to alert the user and the administrator. Or if you're integrated with our cloud extender, you can also issue a block on the Exchange server, which would prevent that user from receiving any additional mail in their touchdown client, or you can initiate a wipe. Other compliance rules are around enforcing of minimum operating systems, enforcing remote wipe support, enforcing encryption support. This may be one item where you have an allowance for if you know that your Fires are going to have, touchdown set up on them and you're going to allow them to enroll. You may have a specific policy or a specific rule for the Fires versus the rest of your Androids, depending on what you're looking at doing there. The application compliance still applies, so if somebody, has an app that's not allowed on their device, you can take an additional action on this side. And that, again, is very similar to the items above. The one item that does get opened up here is the ability to restrict the device, which I think is a popular one that people use, if they're pushing touchdown. But even if you have a rooted device that is found, you can remove the corporate profiles from that device until that device gets back into compliance. And then there's also monitoring rules that exist for these devices as well, where you can monitor SIM changes or roaming changes, and then also any type of OS version change. Now, of course, all of our standard reporting applies in terms of the Kindle Fire, so you can still slice and dice much of the MaaS360 detail in terms of its consolidated effort. I clicked into the wrong thing there, sorry about that. So if I go to the mobile device overview, I'll be able to get an understanding of all my devices, my Kindles, my HTCs, my iPhones, my iPads, and other various devices that are out there. So you can see we do still collect that information. If I drill down into the Android devices, I would end up finding my Val Hetrick Kindle Fire in this list as well. And you can click on any one of these pie pieces or subject headings, and that will bring you into the areas. So here you can see that we have 3 devices in our test environment right now that are running Android. You can also drill into the specific Android hardware and software overviews from a consolidated perspective. And you can filter down into the Kindle if you were looking for specific things, and then you could save those filters on the right-hand side here. All right, so that was basically what I wanted to cover off from a Android Kindle Fire perspective. So I know it was a little bit quicker than most of our getting started webinars are, but we just wanted to highlight some of the capabilities of the Fire here. If there's any questions, we can take those now, and then we have one wrap-up slide that we're going to cover off. So I'll push it back to John to pose the questions out.
All right, thanks for the great demo, Val. For those sitting in on the webinar today, we're glad we're able to convey why there's no need to keep these Kindle Fires at home. And despite what some may believe, the Kindle Fire is just as manageable as any other Android device running the 2.3 OS version. So from an IT management perspective, these devices can be fully utilized by employees when the right tools are put into play, such as MaaS360. So, yeah, now would be a great time to post your questions in the chat or Q&A box, and we'll look through those. And if you'll flip to the last slide, I can kind of go through what's coming up.
Sure.
So we have an upcoming webinar next week, January 19th on Thursday. That's at 2 p.m. The topic is securing the Kindle Fire in the enterprise. So it's not terribly different from what we covered today, but we'll go less into MaaS360 in particular, and work on giving you, a run through of, what you can do in general to bring these tablets to work and enable your, employees that got them for Christmas presents. And I also listed a index of our past webinars, and you can go to that link on the right and look through the entire index. The featured ones here, Kindle Fire versus the iPad 2. We also held a 3-part series on enabling the iOS 5 in the enterprise, and the last is more recent, which is managing iPhones, iPads, and Androids with Exchange Active Sync. And if you scroll up in the chat a little bit, I put 2 links in to the how-to content that you'll see at the bottom there. So if you want to click through, I'll post that again right now, and you can get access to those great articles that work in conjunction with what Val covered today. So let's see here if there's any Q&A. None in the Q&A box and none in the chat. So if anyone wants to throw any last-minute ones in here, now's the time. Val, do you have anything to add before we close?
No, I'd say the only thing, that I would add is certainly thank you for your time and attention today, and if you do have users that are in the middle of, testing with the Kindle Fire and would like to start receiving their email, you can certainly enable that in your existing MaaS360 portal without any interaction from us. So you would just go and create a handful of those items in terms of the specific Kindle policy, the Kindle compliance rule if you're using the compliance rules, and also that device group based on the search criteria that I've provided to